thank you everybody for joining us this morning. We know it's early. So we've got a lot to get through today. So my job is to connect the dots, blow the whistle like I'm on an episode of Gladiators, try not to get PTSD from my PE teaching days, and just keep everything moving. So are we ready for the first speaker? Yeah? So I've known the first speaker for quite a while. She was my master's lecturer back in 2013. So we worked out last night that it's been 13 years. But yeah, it's started off as a lecturer and now absolutely just friends. So welcome to the stage, Dr Mel Bull from Nottingham Business School.
I'm Mel Bull. I'm the Director of Executive Education and MBA programmes at Nottingham Business School at Nottingham Trent University. As Smo mentioned, we met many years ago because I was the MBA Director at Sheffield Hallam and used to run the MBA Facilities Management. So I don't know if there's any of my old students in here. And I've already met Steve, who I know that used to come and do some teaching for me when we were back in the days of MBA FM. So really my job today is to kind of get you to think about the future, set the scene for the day, and I'm going to maybe make some things feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I want that to feel uncomfortable because we learn best, as an educator, we learn best when we feel uncomfortable. So I want, first of all, to take you back to sort of a Lewin's theory of change and the fact that we need to unfreeze before we're able to actually think about something new. We need to get ourselves into a place of unfreezing. So when Lewin talks about unfreezing, change and refreezing, this is the bit I want to get you into for the day. So I need you to unfreeze. So don't come in here with your very set ideas. I want you to have your minds open, and I want to make you wobble. So get your jelly on. That's your trick for the day. Get your jelly on all day. So that could be your theme of the day. Get your jelly on. And I want you to think about how things could be different, because we are in a really unprecedented time in terms of work, and we are in the future of something that we're working towards. We can create it ourselves, but we are being driven by certain aspects that are happening in the world, to the wider world, the politics in the world, the divisive nature of some of the politics in the world, and we're living through a real shift in the way that we work, and it is one of the fastest workplace transformations we've seen, probably since the Industrial Revolution. So we're in AI acceleration. You've talked about AI already this morning, David. We've got global uncertainty. We don't know what's happening. The CIPD is talking about the fact that we've got a huge amount of people going to retire by 2035. So we've got a real shift in terms of the demographics of the people that are working in organisations. And really we need to think about, in 2026, leadership is no longer defined by hierarchy. It needs to be about us thinking about how we can be human and how we can relate to the people alongside this AI and technology that's working. So AI is great. Don't get me wrong, we all use AI. I bet you're all Copilot fans in the room, or ChatGPT. Trust me, I see it with our students. But this is a time where we need to think about being bold and being clear about what we want from our people and actually being human in the way that we deal with them. And I align with Simone and Louisa's book, and I wrote the foreword for it, so I am also going to do a little pitch for their book because I think it's great. But it is about us thinking about how we redesign how work works. We need to think about the people within it. AI, great, but nothing is there until we bring the human element. So AI is now the backbone of a lot of things that we're doing, and we're talking about the AI changes that it might make to FM and the way we deliver FM. But it's also about how we're working with our people. People are fearful of it. I was at a business leaders lecture on Tuesday night. So at the Nottingham Business School, we run business leaders lectures, and we had the MD from Boots there. And they're an organisation that's gone through shifts and changes over the years, and they're a big business that is based in Nottingham, hence why we've got a connection with them. But he was talking about the fact that people are really fearful of AI at the minute as well in the business, because there's a fear of what does that mean for my job. And we need to understand that AI can do so much, but there's a human subjectivity that we also need to bring alongside AI. But it's there and it's happening. Ooh, it's when I get closer to here that it echoes, that's what it is. So we need to think about the gap. So where's AI doing their bit? Where are the people doing their bit? And how as leaders do we bring that gap together? to actually encourage people. There's also lots of research happening now about workforce in 2026. What does workplace look like? In the US, 72% of HR professionals reported that workers' expectations are higher than ever. So we've actually got people wanting to understand what their purpose is in their organisation. Do we actually talk about what your purpose is in the organisation? I know back in the day there was always the thing about, the guy from NASA that was the cleaner that said, I put men on the moon. But actually, what purpose do we have in the organisation? What purpose do we have in the wider societal place? And we're seeing that more with younger generations as they're coming into the workplace, is they want to understand the purpose of what they're doing. And Dan Pink talked about this idea of purpose, autonomy and mastery is something that we need to understand as an intrinsic motivating factor for people. We also need to think about well-being. And I think that's the core of where we are in terms of this human-centric workplace, as Simone and Louisa would talk about. But we need to understand that that's not a thing that can just happen. It's got to be a key and a well-developed area of our offer to people. I'm hearing from young people today, through students, through exec MBA students, that they're losing people rapidly. If there is no idea of development for young people that are coming to the organisation, they'll leave for 500 quid more if there's someone down the road that will give them some development. So we need to have that at the core of where we are. That's what people are looking for. And this idea of psychological safety. So how safe do you feel in your organisation to be able to challenge the way that you do things? Psychological safety should be something that's embedded. There's a great book by Amy Edmondson, who's a Harvard professor, that talks about the fearless organisation. We need to be able to talk about whatever's going on and be able to challenge openly, without fear of retribution, to say we don't think something works. And allow that challenge from the bottom up, not just top down. It's got to be across the board. And equally, I've been working with some businesses around with their senior leadership teams, talking about, is there even psychological safety in the SLT? When you're sat in that meeting talking about your strategy for the next 5 years, is everybody going, yeah, and agreeing, because that's just safer, than actually challenging it? So understand that even with your own leadership teams, do you have psychological safety? And also bringing in something that we call coaching culture. So a coaching culture isn't about you being all nice and soft. It's, we want to be compassionate leaders, but it's about us understanding that as a leader, our responsibility is there for the people that we have there. The MD at Boots made a great line the other day. He said, leadership isn't a role, it's a responsibility. And I think we need to take that on board. It's a responsibility for you, for the people in your organisation as a leader. So this idea of psychological safety, the great statement here from Amy Edmondson. Yeah, I'll put my glasses on for a second. So a climate in which people are comfortable expressing and being themselves, and they feel comfortable sharing concerns and mistakes without fear of embarrassment or retribution. I always go back to the point, when we were kids, we touched something that was hot, out hot, we don't do it again. We learn from it. So we need to be open to learn from mistakes. On the old MBA facilities management, I had one of my engineers that was on that programme said to me, oh, it smells soft and fluffy, Bull. I'll leave you to add that extra word. But actually, after the 3 years of being on his MBA FM programme, he went, oh my God, no, it's in my toolbox now. It's a hard skill. So we need to be able to reflect on what we're doing as leaders. And he now does something where he says, I couldn't say to my engineers, oh, we're going to do reflective practice. He said, I don't think that would have gone down well. It didn't really land. So he said, what we do on a Friday is we have a lunch together and we do a what went well, what went wrong, what can we do differently? Which is basically reflective practice. So thinking about how we encourage that, because that stopped his team hiding mistakes. And my doctoral research was around using reflective practice in business, and actually what came out of it, because it was an exploratory research, was people saying that it reduced blame culture. So actually being able to be honest and open and learn. I always talk about being on a hamster wheel. We get on a hamster wheel and we keep the wheel running and we fix things as we go. So do it this way. Hamster wheel, we've got a little leg off and we fix things and we keep going and we fix things and we keep going. But actually if we don't step off the hamster wheel at some point and actually look around us, we never fix anything. We just sticky plaster. So we need to step off the hamster wheel every now and then. And this idea of psychological safety isn't about us being not focused on performance, because actually when you look at this diagram, actually where we want to get people into is high psychological safety and high performance standards. So we're in that learning zone. Because if people are in the place where they just feel like they're going to get shouted at continuously, and you've got a real command control style of leadership in the organisation, which can become quite toxic, is we'll have people in the anxiety zone. So they might be performing, but their psychological safety will be low, and they'll be looking to get out the door as fast as possible. And we know that retention is something that we need to do, because actually attrition is something that costs businesses a fortune. So there's 4 enablers of engagement that the Engage for Success do. And if you want to go onto their website, they are fantastic. They're a charity organisation, but they talk a lot about how we engage employees. So one of the key things they talk in there about strategic narrative. So I think in organisations we tend to talk about, you know, what we're going to do in the future, but it might be in a 30-page strategy document that we expect everyone to have read, which they won't have. So how are we getting out the strategic narrative about your organisation and what we want to achieve going forward, particularly in this time of uncertainty? How are we showing people what we want to achieve with compassion and warmth about what it means for the people within the organisation? How do we make sure we've got engaging managers? And this for me is another area, and I know I was talking to David just now about making sure that people are developed. And I know Steve's going to talk about this afternoon, I think Louisa will touch on it, is thinking about that development being a core of what we're doing. Again, that links us back to our coaching culture. We want to ensure that people are being taught how to lead, and to lead maybe with more of a coaching style of management and leadership. We need to think about how we engage with the employee voice. How do you hear voices? Just having an engagement survey, we're probably less than half fill it in, and you might get the extremes. You'll get people that are really happy or really peed off, but you're not likely to get anybody in the middle. So how are you hearing the employee voice? What are you doing to make sure that you're hearing what they're saying? And how are you creating forums where they can actually suggest innovation going forward? Because we want to encourage that innovation up. And then the last bit is organisational integrity. Are we doing what we say we're doing? So it's all right if we say that we're a really compassionate organisation and we do X, Y, Z and we put that all on our website, but what does it actually look like on the floor? Because that's where the real culture is when people start talking about what's it like to work here. So we need to think about our organisational integrity. So employee engagement, things have changed. So this was a research done by Gallup. And I used this a few weeks ago at another business networking event. And I was saying to people, if you're a Gen X or baby boomers in the room, I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm old. But maybe in the past, we were happy if the boss was all right and we got paid at the end of the week and it wasn't too bad. And we would accept that. The younger generation are not prepared to accept that. We need to be thinking about the fact that actually they're looking more than just their paycheck, they're looking for their purpose. As I said earlier, they're looking for having ongoing conversations. They're looking at how they develop their strengths, not focusing on their weaknesses. But development is the key behind this. Young people today want to make sure that they have got key, and they want work-life balance, or life-work balance, probably more than we want. We want work-life balance, they want life-work balance. And you need to encourage them to stay in your organisations. And I know within FM we start thinking about how we encourage people into the industry. How are we getting young people to think that this is a great place to be? We need to be better at telling people the story of FM. And I know Sam's going to do that in a moment, tell you the story of FM. And then the other one is employee retention. So again, to bang on about development, but there's new ways of learning now. So you don't have to do a full degree programme. There are micro-credentials, and that's becoming more prevalent probably in Europe, because the European government have actually got themselves in a place where they've learned how to make micro-credentials, or they're learning to, where micro-credentials work across different universities. So micro-credentials are small bits of learning that are accredited. So you get some credits with it. So at Nottingham Business School we have online micro-credentials and we have on-campus micro-credentials, and people can build towards an award, but in up to 8 years. So we've given flexibility, and I think that's the challenge for our sector, but it's for you to understand what it is, because I think we talk about micro-credentials in the university sector as something that we all know about, and I don't think, having been at several business networking events, that people actually understand what micro-credentials are. So they're bite-sized learning with credits that you can build towards an award. And we need to think about the fact, we've said 5 generations in the workforce. What are we going to do to develop leaders who are going to take us forward for the next 20, 30 years? We know that we're going to be in this shift of people retiring. We're going to have a big gap. We're going to rely on these new people that are coming into the organisation. So what skills do we need to be instilling in them as the leaders of the future? And it isn't what the leaders of now are. We need to be thinking what that looks like going forward. So there's my wobble bit. I want you to think about, what does that need to look like? I might think I'm a great leader now, but I'm in my 50s. But what does somebody in their 20s think a great leader looks like? What do they expect from a leader? So we're coming into this human-machine era, so we need to think about our emotional intelligence as leaders within an organisation. We need to be thinking about our empathy and our relationship building. None of this is about saying that we shouldn't also manage performance, but it's actually thinking about it more compassionately. If people are having issues, what we're doing with it, but actually we still need to drive towards performance. So organisations can't exist if we don't make money. So we still need to work towards performance, but it's thinking about how we do that, and maybe thinking about things like our appraisal processes. Are they fit for purpose now? They were fit for purpose 20 years ago, but are they fit for purpose now? And the skill of adaptive leadership. We need people that can operate in a space of uncertainty, but actually be agile enough to think differently when it's needed and to move quickly. And I know it's not always easy in terms of large organisations. Trust me, I work in a university. If you want to put change through, there's processes that you have to go through, and I'm not a fan of a process, but I have to work through processes to get there. But we're trying to be more agile, and I think that's where we need to be as organisations. So we need adaptive leadership. We need people to think quickly and on their feet to make decisions. Have you got autonomy amongst the middle level of your management so that they can make decisions? Or is everything being funneled to senior leadership? But actually, we need to be driving autonomy down and actually giving people the opportunity to make decisions and to innovate. So what does it mean for FM? Not that I haven't forgotten. So we do know that we're seeing that there is going to be a drop-off of our senior FMs, people that have been in the industry for a lot of years, and we're going to potentially have a gap because we've got a weak talent pipeline. Now, this isn't something new. I was talking about this 15 years ago when I was doing the MBA FM, and I don't think we've necessarily moved on from that place in terms of what we're doing about bringing new people in and developing our talent. We need structured leadership development, and I know so again, at Sheffield Hallam, I know the MBA Facilities Management's gone. I know Steve's daughter is doing something was it Man Met, Steve? Yeah. So there are still some courses out there for FM, but they're few and far between now, and they're not generally the senior leadership levels of FM. So maybe thinking about MBAs, I'm going to come on to that at the end. And then also thinking about mentorship. What can you do in the organisation to create some mentorship? How are you thinking about how you mentor some stars of the future coming up? So what does the future leader look like? Well, they're comfortable in being themselves. They'll admit when they're wrong. They'll say, actually, I didn't get it right. They'll be open. They'll be empowering their staff to actually do things. And this comes back to that autonomy piece, which is a driver for the younger generation as well, and probably for us. This blame culture, we want to make sure that people aren't humiliated or ignored if they come up with an idea that maybe it's not right first off, but don't just shut them down, because actually there might be something in it. I was working with an organisation a couple of weeks ago, and they said, oh God, the data team went off and did something, and they wasted 24 hours, and I told them they shouldn't have done that. And I said, yeah, you just squashed their innovation, and they won't come to you next time to say, I've had a great idea. They'll just go, oh no, I won't tell them. So actually thinking about what we do to encourage that way of thinking, and making sure that we've got trust and respect for each other. At the end of the day, we're all people. Whatever level you are in an organisation, we're all just people. And so a call to action. We're moving into this AI-enabled era. Technology is going to accelerate. Complexity will increase, and I think complexity across the world. Expectations will rise of the people that are coming into your industry, and transformation will never be finished because we're in this constant tech involvement at the moment. At the moment, she says, ongoing. So this is where we need to think about what we need to do to lead differently. We need to lead not with certainty, but with curiosity. So, what could be, rather than this is the way we do it. Challenge yourself as a leader. We don't want to lead with control. Command control is so old school. Very forces. For those that are in the forces here, I was a forces child, so I have seen it in first action. We need the connection with people. And we can't predict the future, but we can help people prepare for it. So this, for me, is where we keep them in the jelly space. We need to wobble. We need to all know that things aren't going to stay the same and that we need to be thinking differently about the future. Just checking my time. Oh, I'm good. So the future of work isn't about machines replacing us, because it can't. We're humans, and actually we interact with each other. We make what comes out of AI work. Also, you have to be aware of so many things that AI gets wrong, and trust me, thank you. And if we lead with imagination, integrity and humanity, that maybe the workplace of 2026 and beyond will be somewhere that's more human, more resilient, because we've got that agile way of working, and more hopeful, hopefully. She says, with her fingers crossed. And I think the one thing I would say is, and I was allowed to do this little picture at the end, thanks David, is that the government recently, I don't want to be political, but the government recently have taken away the senior leader apprenticeship, for those that are aware of that. So they've taken away the ability to study towards your MBA. And as the Nottingham Business School, we see ourselves as a civic university with a responsibility to business. So we have actually put in place 50% scholarships for the MBA from September. And we have a global exec MBA where you can study online, so it doesn't matter where you are in the country or in the world. And you do 3 block weeks. One's in, currently in Brazil. We don't know whether it's going to stay in Brazil because of the uncertainty in South America. One's in Stellenbosch in South Africa, and one's in sunny Nottingham. And the other option is to do it as a more of a face-to-face route where you come in 2 days every 7 weeks. Something like that is how it works. So I've got some little postcards that you can take, so you can scan the QR code and then go and have a look at it. But I would really encourage you to think about how you develop your people going forward. Are you looking at your talent pipeline? And how do you ensure you're creating leaders that are set for the future? Thank you.